Are celebrities ever truly safe from their most obsessed fans? Can fame turn deadly when admiration morphs into dangerous obsession? These tragic stories show the darkest side of stardom. Number 5. Rebecca Schaeffer. Did you know a simple DMV request could lead to murder? That's exactly what happened to rising star Rebecca Schaeffer. In the late 1980s, Rebecca Schaeffer was living the dream. The beautiful young actress had scored a starring role in the sitcom My Sister Sam and was on the verge of major movie stardom. At just 21 years old, she had already appeared in Woody Allen's Radio Days and was scheduled to audition for The Godfather Part III. Her career was taking off, and Hollywood insiders predicted she would soon become a household name. But unknown to Schaeffer, a disturbed fan named Robert John Bardo had become obsessed with her. Bardo, a 19-year-old from Tucson, Arizona, had been sending Schaeffer letters for 3 years. He had even traveled to the studio where My Sister Sam was filmed in a failed attempt to meet her. His obsession grew increasingly dangerous. On July 18, 1989, Bardo took his stalking to a fatal level. He had paid a private detective to obtain Schaeffer's address through California's Department of Motor Vehicles. Armed with her home address and a gun, Bardo showed up at Schaeffer's West Hollywood apartment. When she answered the door, he shot her point blank in the chest. Schaeffer died shortly after arriving at the hospital. Investigators later discovered Bardo had been influenced by Arthur Richard Jackson, another stalker who had stabbed actress Teresa Saldana in 1982. Bardo had even kept news clippings about the attack. After killing Schaeffer, Bardo was found wandering in Tucson, shouting about having killed the actress. He was arrested and eventually sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rebecca Schaeffer's murder sent shockwaves through Hollywood and led to significant changes in privacy laws. California quickly passed the first anti-stalking law in the United States, and the DMV tightened its privacy policies to prevent stalkers from obtaining personal information about private citizens. The Driver's Privacy Protection Act was later passed at the federal level in 1994, restricting public access to DMV records. Despite these legislative changes, Rebecca's death remains a heartbreaking example of how fame can attract dangerous obsession. Her promising career was cut tragically short, leaving fans and colleagues to wonder what might have been for the talented young actress. Number 4. Christina Grimmie. Can meeting your fans turn deadly in an instant? Christina Grimmie found out in the most tragic way possible. Christina Grimmie captured the hearts of millions with her powerful voice. The young singer first gained attention through her YouTube covers before becoming a contestant on NBC's The Voice in 2014. Under the mentorship of Adam Levine, Grimmie finished in third place and seemed destined for a bright future in the music industry. Her bubbly personality and undeniable talent had earned her a dedicated fan base. Known for being especially appreciative of her supporters, Grimmie regularly held meet and greets after her performances. She believed in being accessible to the fans who had supported her journey from YouTube sensation to television star. This openness reflected her generous spirit, but ultimately created an opportunity for tragedy. On June 10, 2016, Grimmie performed at the Plaza Live in Orlando, Florida. After the show, she stayed to sign autographs and meet fans. Among those waiting in line was 27-year-old Kevin James Loibl, who had traveled from St. Petersburg, Florida, specifically to see her. What seemed like an ordinary fan interaction quickly turned horrific. As Grimmie opened her arms to hug Loibl, he pulled out a gun and fired 4 shots at close range. Grimmie's brother Marcus tackled Loibl to the ground, but the gunman managed to break free and fatally shot himself. Christina was rushed to the hospital but died from her injuries shortly after midnight on June 11th. She was only 22 years old. Investigators later learned that Loibl had become obsessed with Grimmie. He had undergone LASIK surgery, lost weight, and got hair implants in hopes of attracting her attention. He had also spent hours watching her videos and performances. Coworkers reported that Loibl had even claimed Grimmie was his soul mate, despite never having met her before that fatal night. In the aftermath of her murder, Grimmie's family established the Christina Grimmie Foundation to support families affected by gun violence and breast cancer. Her death also sparked conversations about security at meet and greet events, with many celebrities rethinking their approach to fan interactions. Artists including Selena Gomez, a close friend of Grimmie, were deeply affected by her death. Gomez broke down during a concert dedication to Christina, highlighting the profound impact the young singer had on those who knew her. Though her life ended far too soon, Christina Grimmie's musical legacy lives on through the recordings she left behind and the foundation established in her name. Number 3. John Lennon. How can a single autograph signing end in murder? For John Lennon, a brief encounter with a fan became his final moment. On December 8, 1980, the music world stood still as news broke that John Lennon had been shot outside his New York City apartment building, the Dakota. The former Beatle, peace activist, and musical revolutionary was returning home with his wife, Yoko Ono, after a recording session. It was around 10:50 p.m. when 5 shots rang out, 4 striking Lennon in the back and shoulder. Police officers rushed him to Roosevelt Hospital, but it was too late. John Lennon was pronounced dead on arrival at 11:07 p.m. He was 40 years old. The man who pulled the trigger was Mark David Chapman, a 25-year-old from Hawaii who had traveled to New York specifically to kill Lennon. In a twisted irony, Chapman had been waiting outside the Dakota earlier that same day. When Lennon and Ono left their home in the afternoon, Chapman approached the musician and asked for an autograph. Lennon obliged, signing a copy of his recently released album, Double Fantasy. This interaction was captured in a photograph, the last image of Lennon alive. What made this murder particularly disturbing was that Chapman wasn't a hater but considered himself a fan. He had grown up admiring the Beatles and Lennon in particular. However, Chapman had become increasingly unstable, developing a complex obsession with Lennon mixed with religious delusions. He later claimed that reading J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye had influenced his actions. Chapman believed Lennon was a phony who preached simplicity while living in luxury. After shooting Lennon, Chapman made no attempt to flee. Police found him calmly reading The Catcher in the Rye while waiting for their arrival. During his trial, he refused to claim insanity and instead pled guilty to second-degree murder. Chapman was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison and has been denied parole 11 times as of 2020. Lennon's murder triggered global mourning. Hundreds of thousands gathered in Central Park just across from the Dakota for a silent vigil. Radio stations went off the air in tribute, and fans worldwide left flowers, candles, and handwritten notes at impromptu memorials. The spot where Lennon died was later named Strawberry Fields in his honor, featuring a mosaic with the word "Imagine," the title of one of his most beloved songs. What makes Lennon's death particularly tragic is that it came during a period of renewed creativity. After a 5-year hiatus from music, he had just released Double Fantasy with Yoko Ono. Songs like Starting Over and Woman showed Lennon at peace with his past and optimistic about his future. His murder not only ended his life but robbed the world of decades of potential music and activism. Number 2. Selena Quintanilla. Can the president of your fan club be your worst enemy? Selena Quintanilla never saw betrayal coming from someone she trusted. Selena Quintanilla Perez was just 23 years old when she was gunned down in a motel in Corpus Christi, Texas. Known simply as Selena to her millions of fans, the vibrant young woman had already achieved what most musicians only dream of. Dubbed the Queen of Tejano music, Selena had broken gender barriers in the male-dominated genre and crossed over into mainstream American pop culture. Her album, Selena Live, had won a Grammy Award, and she was working on her English-language debut that would have likely catapulted her to international superstardom. What makes Selena's murder particularly heartbreaking is that it came at the hands of someone she trusted. Yolanda Saldivar wasn't just any fan, she was the president of Selena's official fan club and managed the singer's boutiques. Saldivar had worked her way into Selina's inner circle, gaining the trust of the Quintanilla family through her seemingly unwavering dedication to the young star. But beneath this facade of devotion lurked a dangerous obsession. Employees began noticing Saldivar's peculiar behavior, including a bedroom decorated like a shrine to Selina. More alarmingly, the family discovered that Saldivar had been embezzling over $60,000 from the fan club and boutiques. When confronted with evidence of her theft, Saldivar's obsession took a deadly turn. On March 31, 1995, Selina agreed to meet Saldivar at a Days Inn motel to recover financial records. What was supposed to be a routine business meeting ended in tragedy when Saldivar pulled out a .38 caliber revolver and shot Selina in the back as she attempted to leave. Despite desperately running toward the lobby for help, Selina collapsed and was pronounced dead at a local hospital. The bullet had severed an artery, causing rapid blood loss. After the shooting, Saldivar engaged in a nearly 10-hour standoff with police, threatening suicide while sitting in her pickup truck in the motel parking lot. She eventually surrendered and was convicted of first-degree murder, receiving a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Selina's death triggered an unprecedented outpouring of grief, particularly in the Latino community. Her funeral drew 60,000 mourners, and her posthumously released album, Dreaming of You, debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, a first for a Latin artist. Major publications like People magazine released special issues commemorating her life, and her hometown of Corpus Christi established a museum in her honor. More than 25 years after her death, Selina's legacy continues to grow. Her story has been adapted into a successful film starring Jennifer Lopez and a Netflix series. New generations discover her music every day, and her influence on Latin music and fashion remains profound. Yet this enduring legacy only underscores the tragedy of what was lost: a pioneering young artist whose life was cut short by someone who claimed to be her biggest fan. #1. Gianni Versace. Can a simple morning routine turn deadly in broad daylight? Fashion icon Gianni Versace discovered this horrific truth on a sunny Miami morning. On July 15, 1997, the fashion world was rocked by an unimaginable tragedy. Gianni Versace, the 50-year-old Italian designer who had built one of the world's most recognizable luxury brands, was gunned down on the steps of his Miami Beach mansion. The brutal murder occurred in broad daylight as Versace returned from his morning walk to the News Cafe, a daily routine he enjoyed in the vibrant South Beach neighborhood he'd come to love. Versace had just unlocked the gate to his opulent Ocean Drive home, Casa Casuarina, when he was approached from behind. Andrew Cunanan, a 27-year-old spree killer who had already murdered 4 other men across the country, fired 2 shots at point-blank range. One bullet struck Versace in the face, the other in his neck. The fashion mogul died on those very steps, his blood staining the coral-colored pavement outside his Mediterranean-style palace. The relationship between Versace and his killer remains one of the most disputed aspects of this tragic case. Cunanan, described by those who knew him as a pathological liar with a genius-level IQ, had been living a life funded by wealthy older men he met in San Diego's gay community. While initial reports suggested Cunanan and Versace had previously met at a San Francisco nightclub, the Versace family has consistently denied any prior connection. What is clear is that Cunanan had developed an obsession with Versace and other celebrities, often bragging about supposed connections to the rich and famous. At the time of the murder, Cunanan was already on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list for the murders of 4 men: Jeffrey Trail, David Madsen, Lee Miglin, and William Reese. Despite this high-profile manhunt, Cunanan had been living relatively openly in Miami Beach for 2 months before killing Versace. He frequented local pawn shops, nightclubs, and even used his real name at times, raising questions about how he evaded capture for so long. The manhunt intensified after Versace's murder, with the fashion icon's celebrity status bringing unprecedented attention to the case. 8 days later, on July 23rd, Cunanan was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound aboard a houseboat just a few miles from the murder scene. He left no suicide note, taking to his grave any explanation for his murderous spree. Versace's death came at the height of his creative powers and business success. The designer had revolutionized fashion by blending sexuality, celebrity, and spectacle. His bold designs celebrated the body and brought together influences ranging from ancient Greek imagery to pop art. At runway shows, he seated celebrities in the front row rather than traditional fashion editors, understanding before many of his contemporaries how star power could amplify a brand. His sister Donatella, who had worked closely with him for years, took over creative direction of the company following his death. The murder has been the subject of books, documentaries, and most notably, the 2018 FX series American Crime Story, The Assassination of Gianni Versace. These explorations have often emphasized how homophobia complicated both the murder investigation and the portrayal of Versace's life in the media. The designer had been one of few openly gay men at his level of the fashion industry, living proudly with his partner Antonio D'Amico for over a decade. Today, a memorial plaque marks the spot where Versace fell, and tourists regularly take photos on the steps where he died. His former mansion operates as a luxury hotel and restaurant, preserving much of the lavish decor he installed, including his famous Medusa logo embedded in mosaics and fixtures throughout the property. Have we learned enough from these tragedies, or will obsession continue to turn deadly for those in the spotlight? When does fandom cross the line from admiration to dangerous fixation?